If you think about the recent history of I mean, 2022 was really the year generative AI just exploded onto the public scene.
Right, with ChatGPT's launch at the end of November.
Exactly. But 2023 was the year that governments everywhere looked at their existing plans and realized they basically had to tear them up and start over.
The speed of change was just,
Yeah,
it was too much to ignore.
it forced this huge reset on everyone's long-term digital plans. And you could argue that nowhere is that pivot more complete, more comprehensive than in Singapore.
Hmm.
They just unveiled their National AI Strategy 2.0, or NAI's 2.0. So today we're doing a deep dive into the official documents behind NAI's 2.0. Our mission is to break down the three core, really fundamental shifts that are driving this new strategy.
And see how it moves Singapore way beyond what they first planned back in 2019.
Yeah, and figure out what these shifts actually mean in practice for anyone who's following global tech policy.
The first thing that jumps out is just the scope of their vision. They explicitly state it's AI for the public good, for Singapore and the world. This is not some defensive, inward-looking tech policy. It's a really proactive commitment to using AI's benefits on a global stage, and they're using their position as an international hub to do it.
And it's important to remember, as you said, they're not starting from zero here.
Not at all. They built really strong foundations with the first strategy. They put in over 500 million Singapore dollars through AI Singapore.
Which is a massive commitment for a country that size.
A huge commitment. And crucially, they were pioneers in governance. They launched the Model AI governance framework way back in 2019, and then the practical testing toolkit, AI Verify.
And those early moves really paid off, right? They put Singapore right up there in the top tier globally on a bunch of AI metrics. But then generative AI happened. Yeah.
And it just demanded a whole structural rethink. The old strategy wasn't enough for this new reality.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Let's start with the first major shift because it really gets to the core of their workforce and their whole education system. This first big shift is moving AI from being, a good-to-have opportunity.
Something you'll get to eventually.
Right, to being a clear, almost existential necessity. The document uses this really strong language. It says people must know AI. What does that mindset, that necessity, actually mean for the economy and the government?
Well, it's a profound change in perspective. They're basically saying that AI is now a general-purpose technology, like electricity. It's going to transform every single job.
Every job.
Every single one, cognitive or physical. So the goal is two-sided. First is excellence, which means picking a few areas and developing, true peaks of world-class capability.
Okay.
And the second is empowerment, which is about lifting up every person, every business, every community, so they can use AI with confidence.
So you need two kinds of people then?
Exactly. You need two distinct types, and you need them in huge numbers. You absolutely need the deep technical experts, the AI creators, the practitioners who are building the model.
Sure, the builders.
But because AI is a necessity, you also need millions of savvy users. The everyday workforce, the managers, the public.
And that's the key difference, isn't it? That distinction between the small group of creators and the millions of users. That scaling adoption really happens.
It is.
And the government seems to be making it clear that they're leading by example. They're not just pointing at companies and saying, go use AI. They're building it into their own machinery. Can you tell us a bit more about that tool they build for their public service? Because, putting a large language model inside a government secure IT system, that sounds like a nightmare, frankly, from a security perspective.
It's a huge undertaking, and it shows a really high level of commitment. They developed this in-house tool, an LLM-powered tool called PAIR.
Care.
Yeah, PAIR. It's a suite of tools that gives public officers secure access to LLM capabilities. So they, brainstorming ideas, drafting complex documents, getting help with code, analyzing data.
But all within the government's secure, controlled network.
Exactly. All inside their IT boundaries. The goal is just a straight-up productivity boost. They're treating it like a utility, and apparently the adoption has been pretty incredible, with thousands of public servants using PAIR Chat regularly.
And that sends a powerful signal to the private sector.
It does. It says that secure internal deployment of these powerful generative tools isn't just possible, it's actually required now for efficiency.
So if the government is doing that internally, how are they making sure the rest of the workforce, the external workforce, becomes that savvy user they need, especially when jobs are changing so fast?
This is where they plug into these existing, very structured systems they've already built, things like the jobs transformation maps or JTMs.
JTMs.
These are critical. They're not just some generic training course. They are super detailed frameworks that map out exactly how specific jobs and the skills needed for them in a whole sector like finance or manufacturing.
How they're going to be completely changed by tech over the next 3 to 5 years.
Precisely. For example, they're updating the financial services JTM right now, specifically to analyze how generative AI is going to impact roles in banking and insurance,
Yeah.
front office, back office, everything.
It was incredibly targeted.
It is. By having that granular sector-specific data, they can make sure their reskilling programs are immediately relevant. They're getting ahead of the skills gaps instead of just reacting to them.
Mm-hmm.
The whole strategy frames this systematic workforce planning as non-negotiable.
That systematic approach really shows that necessity isn't just a word they're using, it's actually built into their planning. And that focus on building a super capable internal ecosystem, it leads perfectly into their next major shift, pushing that ambition out onto the world stage. So let's talk about shift 2. Going from a local ambition to a truly global one. Singapore says it wants to be a pace setter. What does that really mean for a small country? Are they trying to be rule makers here or something else?
I'd say they're positioning themselves as pragmatic rule shapers and essential contributors. Look, Singapore knows it has to connect to global innovation networks to master AI.
They're too small to go it alone.
Exactly. They can't solve the biggest challenges by themselves, things like the massive energy use of data centers or data sharing standards or ethics. These are all global problems.
So they need a seat at the table.
They need a seat at all the key tables. They're very active in places like the Global Partnership on AI, the WEF's AI Governance Alliance, and critically, the UN's high-level advisory body on AI.
Right.
One of their own chief AI officers was actually selected as a member of that UN body. So they're there to make sure the global rules are shaped with the perspective of the smaller, highly digital economy in mind.
But hold on, the documents also make it very clear they want to secure scarce resources like compute power for themselves. That's in shift 3.
It is.
Doesn't that desire for, localized control over infrastructure clash with this idea of global collaboration and open standards?
That is the central tension of the entire strategy. It's the tightrope they have to walk. And they address it by focusing on pragmatic tools instead of just grand, abstract rules.
Okay, what do you mean by tools?
Their international contribution is often about providing solutions that other countries and companies can just pick up and use immediately. The best example is AI Verify. This is not some theoretical white paper. It's their own AI governance testing framework and a software toolkit.
Right, I've heard of this.
They piloted it in 2022. But the really smart move was making it open source in mid-2023. That transparency, that practicality, led to the creation of the AI Verify Foundation.
And now it has a ton of members, right?
Over 90 corporate members from all over the world.
So instead of trying to dictate global standards from on high, they're offering up a common open source tool for testing AI trustworthiness.
Exactly. And that naturally encourages everyone to align. They're shifting the conversation from, are you trustworthy?
Yeah.
To, can you prove you're trustworthy using this standard open tool?
That's a much easier sell.
It's much more palatable for both industry and other governments. It's a classic small-state diplomatic play. Give away something concrete and useful to gain influence.
And it goes beyond just governance.
Oh, absolutely. This global ambition is driving their R&D. They're using joint grant calls, like one they have with the Republic of Korea, to develop AI for net zero energy management in buildings.
So it's very applied research.
Very. It's not just basic science. It directly connects their local AI talent to solving huge global problems like climate change and sustainable infrastructure.
Yeah.
And that's a contribution the world definitely values.
Yeah, that ROK collaboration and AI Verify really show how this shift helps them contribute to that public good for Singapore and the world, making them a really reliable, pragmatic partner on the global stage. Okay, let's get to the third and maybe the most structural shift. NAS 1.0 was all about these discrete flagship national AI projects, one for healthcare, one for education. Shift 3 is the pivot from those individual projects to integrated systems. What exactly defines this new systems approach, and why make that huge administrative change right now?
It's a crucial change because if AI is truly a necessity, which they established in Shift 1, then you can't have its impact stuck in these little isolated pockets of success.
It can't just be a few cool projects.
No. For AI to have that widespread and positive impact they talk about, you have to be able to administer solutions at scale. And that means you have to orchestrate the entire ecosystem, the talent, the infrastructure, the resources, as integrated systems.
So the new strategy lays out 3 of these systems.
3 integrated systems working through 10 specific enablers. System 1 is the activity drivers. That's your industry, government, and research. The idea here is to build deep technical capabilities around real, meaningful use cases.
Going beyond just using AI to actually creating new products.
Exactly. Creating new intellectual property, new value.
Give us an example of one of these activity driver things, like a center of excellence.
A great one is the American Express Decision Science Center of Excellence that's anchored in Singapore. This COE isn't just doing basic back-office work.
No.
No, it's using advanced AI and machine learning for really complex stuff, like credit and fraud risk modeling, and even deep generative AI R&D. By anchoring these COEs, they create this virtuous cycle where top companies attract top talent, and that talent generates high-value IP.
Which feeds right into System 2, people and community.
It does.
And the strategy sets this wild goal, increasing their pool of AI practitioners. These are the specialized tech workers who deploy the solutions to 15,000 people. For a small nation, that is a huge leap in talent.
It's a massive leap.
How are they even going to try and do that?
It'd have to be a combination of focused attraction and development, so aggressive training programs at home and recruiting talent from abroad. But there's a really fascinating part of System 2 called placemaking. Placemaking. To actually nurture this community of 15,000, they're setting up a dedicated physical AI site, a kind of central AI campus or headquarters.
Interesting. So not just a virtual community.
Not just digital. It's about intentionally putting creators, researchers, and practitioners together in a physical space to spark ideas, encourage collaboration, and just build a vibrant community that makes talented people want to stay. They're basically borrowing a playbook from successful tech hubs everywhere.
And finally, System 3, infrastructure and environment. This feels like the biggest bottleneck for everyone right now, just because of the insane compute demands of LLMs.
It is the bottleneck.
So how does this strategy tackle that need for raw compute power?
System 3 is all about those foundational blocks: compute, data, and a trusted environment. And you're right, with generative AI, the biggest headache is the scarcity of high-performance compute, especially GPUs.
The GPUs, yeah.
The strategy commits to significantly boosting local access to these powerful resources for everyone: industry, government, and researchers.
And that's a direct response to the global competition we were talking about earlier.
It has to be. Securing your own high-performance compute is now a matter of sovereignty, of keeping your domestic research alive. But, and this is a huge but, they have to balance it with their net zero carbon goals.
Right. Singapore is a small, dense island.
Exactly. Limited carbon budget, limited power. So every new data center, every new GPU cluster has to be incredibly efficient and sustainable. That's why there's so much focus on green data center technology.
That tension, getting the compute you need locally while sticking to global climate targets, that has to be one of the toughest balancing acts in the whole plan.
It is.
But let's use a quick case study, the Q&M Dental Group 1, to show how the systems approach ties everything together: activity, people, and infrastructure to get real impact. You mentioned the AISG 100 Experiments program, the 100E. Tell us about the Q&M Dental Group's AI model.
Okay, this is a perfect example of the system in action. Q&M is a big dental chain. They had a really specific problem they couldn't solve. They needed an AI model to help their dentist read x-rays.
To spot diseases earlier.
To spot early disease, to recommend treatments. A really complex, regulated solution that you can't just buy off the shelf. So through the 100E program, that's System 1, Research Meets Industry,
Right.
public researchers worked with the company. That's System 2, your practitioners and creators. Together, they developed this proprietary model called EM2AI.
And the key thing is what happened next.
The key is that it didn't just stay as a one-off project. Because the whole system is designed for scale, and it's supported by that trusted environment in System 3, Q&M was able to deploy the solution across more than 150 of their clinics in Singapore, and even across their network in Malaysia.
And that's the proof. That's scale.
That scale is the proof point. It shows research turning directly into company IP, powered by a talent pool, creating real value that scales immediately and has a regional impact. It hits both excellence for Singapore and the good for the wider world. So to sum it all up, these 3 big shifts, from opportunity to necessity, from local to global ambition, and from projects to system thinking, they're all deeply connected. They're the gears in a machine designed to deliver on that central vision:
A machine that enables both world-class excellence and widespread empowerment.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, especially if you don't happen to be a Singaporean policymaker? Well, Singapore's NAIS 2.0 is one of the most complete blueprints out there for how a country can manage the crazy high-speed challenges of generative AI.
It's a detailed whole-of-nation plan.
It is. It manages both the incredible potential and the very complex risks through highly structured national-level investment.
Indeed. And the strategy keeps coming back to a key tension that every single modern economy is facing: the scarcity of critical resources, talent, compute, energy. They're all scarce in this competitive AI landscape.
Hmm.
So, given that clear ambition to be a world leader and to secure its own infrastructure, here's a question for you to think about. How can a small, hyper-digital state like Singapore balance securing localized, exclusive access to critical infrastructure like those top-tier GPUs and the power and carbon budget for data centers, while at the same time holding on to a real long-term commitment to global open-source collaboration and a binding net zero roadmap?
That's a critical tension, isn't it? The pull between national security and global sustainability. We've seen how Singapore is trying to solve it with this systematic, integrated national strategy. We invite you to think more about the implications of these systems-based shifts and how other nations might respond to the undeniable necessity of AI.